Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thanks for joining us, the Local Living Venture. We're really pleased to have you to be hosting this event with SLELO Prism and all the generous time that Megan has put into making this possible for all of us and for you all to come here. We just really appreciate it. Just want to, before we, pass things off to Megan and to let us know about the Pledge to Protect, I just want to give you a little bit of, background for our organization. We're the Local Living Venture. Most of you actually, I believe, already know. But in a nutshell, we're dedicated to sharing rural skills and simple living techniques on a neighbor-to-neighbor basis through a lot of skill sharing events and mutual aid meetups. And so this event kind of falls in that category through the working together to make sure that we can all benefit from a more cohesive and sustainable environment all around us. So we're sharing a program that's already done a lot of the work for us. The Pledge Protect and Slilo and Megan here have done a lot of the work, a lot of foundation that I think we can really build on. And so it just really feeds into our organizations and goals. Just highlight, we've got a couple different events coming up. You can go to our website. We have up to date running list of different activities and workshops and sort of meet and greets, community potlucks, events where we're trying to just organize what you all want to learn, or coordinating different events where people can build upon the skill sets that our neighbors have that we may not really be aware of, from anything from beekeeping to rocket mass heaters to simple gardening skills and activities like how to identify and get rid of different invasives like this one. We have a lot of pollinator bee meeting meetups every Tuesday, once a month, every Tuesday on Tuesdays. And we're going to be restarting our Pollinator Pals project, in case any of you are familiar with that. We are currently seeking grants to try and buy the seeds and packets to give away because we want to make sure that we spread wild pollinator-friendly flowers all throughout the North Country to try and, hopefully replace some of the terrain that we're, opening up as we get rid of invasive species. Just, protecting our natural habitat here and support the gardens and try to just fill this county with pollinator-friendly plants. We could use some help if anyone is interested in trying to make that happen, either in your own, within your organizations or on your own little gardens. Every little step helps. Um, so let's see. I believe that's. Oh, one other thing is that if anybody, one of our big projects that we're actually working on right now is designing a native plant, a native edible plant um, trading card game. Not so much trading card game, but like a deck of cards as a little mini game that people can learn from and just play simple. It's effectively going to be a stack of playing cards, but it is themed and built with locally sourced artwork and pictures on different plants that you can use and like harvest and grow that are beneficial to our environment. So one of the things as we try to roll that out to all of our different events and make that accessible for people to utilize and share with your friends, if you reach out to us, there are a couple different plants that we're looking to try and get good pictures of, just because we're a small organization. So if you have local edible plants in your area that you can easily take a picture of at the different stages of life, and from the seedlings all the way up to the fruiting bodies, if you can send that to us, or you can communicate with us, we can try to coordinate some transfers. That would really help our project. We're hoping to give these away for free at our different tabling events and different activities, so that everybody can pick up a deck of cards and play a game and learn something at the same time. So these are just some of the things that we're hoping to do in our area in the coming months. So, but in the meantime, I just want to pass things off back to Megan. Thank you for giving us this platform.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dan. And all that sounds lovely, especially those playing cards. And I feel like Team SLELO would definitely have a lot of photos. We don't always just photograph the invasive species. And I'm also curious if you're going to include anything about invasive species, and if so, if you wanted some help with that. These playing cards sound pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you for having me tonight and for joining me on a weekday evening. I know it's a busy
Yeah.
time of day for everybody, but I'm happy to be here. So I'm Megan Pistolese Shaw. I'm the Education Outreach Coordinator with SLELO PRISM, and our staff also includes our director, Brittany Rogers, our terrestrial coordinator, Robert Smith, our aquatic coordinator, Adrian Owens, and our GIS analyst, Carolyn Kostner. And you can also learn more about us or get involved by checking out our website, following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So the main purpose of this meeting is, just to connect with you. Over the next hour, I'll share a little bit about who we are and our work. My goal is to simply provide you with resources developed through one of our special initiatives called the Pledge to Protect, and to just empower you with just some simple actions you can take to protect your garden, lands, and waters from invasive species. So to begin, the St. Lawrence Eastern Lake Ontario Partnership for Regional Invasive Species Management, or SLELO PRISM, or sometimes SLELO for short, is one of 8 PRISMs that span the state of New York, creating a network of partnerships as a collaborative approach to invasive species management. And the SLELO region includes the 5 counties of Oneida, Oswego, Jefferson, Lewis, and part of St. Lawrence. And we collaborate with our partners to protect our lands and waters from the impacts of invasive species. And the PRISM network is funded by the Environmental Protection Fund, administered by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, and is hosted by various organizations. SLELO and actually the Adirondack PRISM are both hosted by the Nature Conservancy. And SLELO has 8 goals that we center our mission around. And through these goals, we take actions to prevent the spread of invasive species through early detection surveys and rapid response efforts. We're involved in the management of invasive species within our region. And our management focuses on species that pose the greatest threat and where control is feasible. And our efforts are prioritized within priority conservation areas, or PCAs. And these are sites with high ecological value, such as rare species habitat, wildlife management areas, and key corridors for wildlife. We focus restoration efforts within our PCAs where invasive species have been managed to help ecosystems recover. And we collaborate with partners to raise awareness, which is what we're doing right now, and to support our management efforts. We engage the public through events and trainings, news, and social media. And we sort of serve as a regional source for invasive species information, including online resources, our seasonal newsletters, early detection survey results, and annual reports, which are all available to the public on our website. And then we are also involved in innovative research and technologies such as environmental DNA, and we use that to understand, manage, and reduce invasive species impacts while enhancing ecosystem function. So we have a lot of goals and roles. And next, I'd just like to learn a little bit about you. I did put together a poll. If I could figure out how to launch it. All right, I'm going to hit this launch button and maybe set just, a minute timer. If folks wouldn't mind participating in this poll, let me know if you're not seeing it.
I can see it. I'm just having difficulty
Oh, you're
clicking on
co-host, so you
anything.
probably won't be able to participate, Dan.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. And also, it would be helpful, I didn't get a chance to check as people are coming in, but if your name on your Zoom, profile, if it's like a phone number or not your actual name that you use to register with, could you change it? It just makes it a little bit easier for me to record our attendance for the event. You could also probably put your name in the chat too. That might actually help me better with the attendance, because I can check the record later. Okay, I'm gonna just go ahead and end the poll. Looks like a lot of you like to spend time on the water in your garden, of course. All right. And for some reason, I can't see the answer to the question for the invasive species. Okay, well, I will look at that later then, I suppose. All right, so thank you for taking time to share that with me. So, just before we dig in too deep, I'd like to just start with the basics and, consider what invasive species are. So an invasive species, it can be a plant, it could be an animal, it could be a microorganism that is not native to the ecosystem they become established in and whose introduction causes harm to the economy, the environment, or to human health. It is important to note that not all native species are invasive. Some like apples are beneficial, while others like maybe dandelions may be to some, not to me because I love them, but to some may be considered a nuisance, but they're not considered to be invasive. And what makes invasive species more impactful than other species is their ability to spread quickly and outcompete native species. They lack natural predators in the environments they are introduced to and can often reproduce in large numbers or easily adapt to environmental conditions. So with education and outreach being a main goal of our mission in the summer of 2021, SLELO PRISM worked with a marketing firm to develop an outreach initiative called the Pledge to Protect. And the Pledge to Protect is designed to engage target audiences that enjoy spending time in 5 different outdoor categories. So lands, trails, waters, forests, gardens, and communities. We've grouped the lands and trails together. And it's basically just a goal to empower you to take action to protect the places that you love to spend time in. So the Pledge to Protect, it begins on our website landing page at ipledgetoprotect.org, where all the resources and everything I'm going to be sharing live there along with the actual form to take the Pledge to Protect. So upon signing up, you become what we call a protector, and you receive email blogs showcasing simple actions that you can take throughout the year to prevent the spread of invasives or to manage invasives on your own property. You also get chances to earn these really cool badges that are pictured here on the screen, virtual and also physical badges that you can put on things, and win prizes by just taking the suggested actions in the protector blogs. We've created virtual toolboxes with resources to help you learn to recognize invasive species you may encounter while enjoying the outdoors, as well as best management practices, guides, and lots of different useful apps. And using these tools and interacting with the program awards you those badges and those prizes that I mentioned. So the Protectors blogs, they are sent out to the pledgers monthly. And the blogs are themed by season and just showcase simple prevention steps and that can be taken while enjoying the outdoors and feature specific resources relative to different themes. And then this slide here just shows a few of the blog themed towards gardening and volunteering and invasive species management for just some examples to show you. Additionally, we developed themed protector toolkits to provide the resources to help guide and support you. So the toolkits are on the ipledgetoprotect.org main landing page, and anyone can access them even if they don't take the pledge. There's a virtual and a printable PDF toolkit available for each of the outdoor categories. Each toolkit includes, a brief why care introduction, simple protective actions you can take for the pledge category, plus the virtual badge that you can download, tools that feature invasive species, showcase tailored to the relevant outdoor environment and engagement opportunities. And here's just a quick tour of the toolboxes. I'm going to play a video. Let me know if you do not hear sound. Toolkits are on the iPledgeToProtect.org main landing page. And there is a virtual and a printable toolkit for each of the outdoor categories, which you can see here, and you can access them by just clicking on them. And each toolkit can be opened here, and each of them will provide a brief Y-Care introduction, have access to the printable PDF version, give you simple steps you can take, invasive species you may encounter, ways to support our efforts, as well as access to the social media toolbox. It breaks things down into simple steps for each outdoor category. It gives you some invasive species to learn about that you may encounter while enjoying that outdoor category, as well as management guides and identification guides, different ways to get involved in community science opportunities, and a bunch of different resources that are themed for each toolbox, which you can see listed here. And you can explore each of these resources to just help you fulfill your pledge to protect or just learn more about the invasive species you may encounter in these different outdoor categories. Okay, so we've also developed a social media library with many visually appealing graphics and videos that you can share on your own social media channels. I'll share an example here. All right, and then over the next few slides, I'll just share some tips taken straight from our protectors blogs and the resources that I shared to help you protect your gardens, lands, and waters. So it'll be tips for each of those themes. Okay, so invasive species often begin in home gardens and then spread to natural areas, forests, wetlands, waterways, where their impact can last for generations. But the good news is that the solution can start right from where the problem begins. So climate smart gardening is a strategic, eco-friendly approach that prioritizes native plants that naturally support local wildlife and replaces invasive ornamental plants with sustainable alternatives and builds landscapes that are resilient to climate change and prevents the accidental spread of invasive seeds, roots, and pests. And even the most well-meaning gardeners can unknowingly introduce invasive species to their landscapes. Some of the most persistent threats in the SLELO region are plants that were once sold, and in some cases still are, as decorative ornamentals. Behind their beauty, however, lies the potential for serious ecological damage. And luckily, these invasive species have several native alternatives that look just as beautiful and support ecological growth, which I'll share with you. So native alternatives shared next were suggested by our partners and selected using the New York Flora Atlas, which is a great resource to learn what plants are native to New York and specific ecoregions. And I also forgot to mention earlier, I'm going to have a follow-up email with all of the resources that I'm sharing with you today, including the slides and the recording. So you'll get access to all of those things. So the first on the no-no list is the invasive barberry. This is a popular landscaping shrub, but it forms dense, thorny thickets that crowd out native understory plants to create ideal habitat for ticks, mice, and chipmunks. Some native alternatives to consider are winterberry. It replaces the barberry's winter color by holding onto brilliant red fruit clusters that sustain over 40 native bird species through freezing weather. And ecologically, its massive water-loving root system thrives in damp areas to filter runoff, stabilize shorelines, and prevent soil erosion. And then also Virginia rose replaces the barberry's dense thorny barrier with a secure, protective nesting habitat for songbirds and small mammals. And ecologically, its open-faced summer flowers provide highly accessible pollen for native bees, while its extensive underground runners find dry or sandy soil to halt erosion. So some nice options there. And wetland areas are especially vulnerable to species like yellow iris, which forms dense monotypic stands and it expands very quickly via rhizomes. It can easily replace and crowd out important riparian plants, causing a loss of vital habitat. Additionally, the root systems of yellow flag iris can narrow waterways and clog irrigation systems. So some native alternatives are the beautiful blue flag iris. Perfectly mimics the structural sword-like foliage and the semi-aquatic growth habit of yellow flag iris. Um, Ecologically, it provides high-quality nectar to native bumblebees and hummingbirds without forming that dense monocultural mat that chokes out local fish and amphibian habitats. And also blue vervain, it replaces the tall, bright presence of the flag iris or the yellow iris in wet meadows and shoreline borders. And then it also has these spikes of blue purple flowers. Ecologically, it's a powerhouse for biodiversity, supporting numerous specialized native bees, producing abundant seeds that serve as a vital food source for migrating songbirds. And then also the cardinal flower. This just offers a stunning high contrast alternative to that bright yellow of the invasive iris with this intensely vivid, fire engine red spikes. Ecologically, its deeply tubular flowers are significantly adapted as a crucial late summer energy source for the ruby-throated hummingbird and some large swallowtail butterflies. And the butterfly bush, although it may be beautiful, they can easily escape cultivation and invade natural areas, crowding out native plants. There are no native caterpillars that eat the butterfly bush leaves. So, some alternatives for you would be the New England aster. This is a keystone perennial that replaces the cone-shaped spikes of that butterfly bush, and it has a dense 6 foot tall explosion of daisy-like, vivid purple flowers featuring bright golden centers. They're beautiful. And unlike the invasive shrub, it safely hosts over 100 native caterpillar species and provides crucial, late season nectar for migrating monarchs and bumblebee queens well into the autumn frost. And then American elderberry, swapping out the cone-shaped blooms for this massive, lacy white flower that's got these wide arching shrub. It brings a really nice architectural presence to your landscape. And while the butterfly bush produces no fruit, the elderberry yields massive clusters of late summer berries that feed dozens of bird species and features hollow winter stems that provide crucial nesting sites for the native bees. And then multiflora rose is a thorny shrub that quickly forms impenetrable walls and displaces native flowers, and it's very, very unpleasant to walk through. Some native alternatives are ninebark. This is a tough, fast-growing shrub that mimics the 10-foot arcing form of that multiflora rose, exploding with white to pink spring blooms and decorative autumn seed pods. It has a deep, fibrous roots that help to stabilize slopes against erosion. And also it provides some safe nesting cover for local songbirds. And then the spice bush, it thrives in shady woodlands and damp borders. It is really good at replacing the invasive roses with early spring yellow blossoms that are very fragrant and deer resistant. And it serves as an exclusive host for plants for the spice bush swallowtail butterfly and produces high-fat red berries that fuel migrating songbirds in the autumn. And I'd like to just mention that, when you're choosing your plants, understanding between the true native species and the cultivar, when you're in the store. So, scientific names, they're often hard to pronounce, but don't worry about it. Just know how to read the label in the garden center. So you can tell a cultivar from a stray or a true native species instantly by just looking at the scientific name on the label and checking for the single quotation or the double marks on the label here. So this example here on the left, we have a true native plant. And you can see here that the Latin name here, the genus and the species is written out and it has single quotations and then it just has the common name in parentheses here. That's what the true native species tag will look like. Whereas if it's a cultivar, it'll feature a third name, always enclosed in the single quotation marks. And this represents a plant selectively bred by humans for specific traits. So for example, the Echinacea purpura magnus. So it's a magnus coneflower. So that is the cultivar, not the true native species. Also, avoid planting anything that is listed in the New York State prohibited and regulated invasive plant list. Regulated invasive plants can be sold and used in New York, but can't be intentionally introduced to natural areas, whereas a prohibited species cannot be sold or used in New York State. So the regulated plants are required by law to display regulatory stickers labeling it as an invasive species. And there's an example here on this slide. And our Garden Protectors Toolkit features many more resources like this, just designed to help you protect your garden from invasive species, including helpful guides, species, profiles, and native plant resources. And many of us have invasive species in our own yards. So the next few slides will share just some very general control methods that you can apply to protect your land from invasive species. So manual control, such as digging and hand pulling, is most effective on small invasive plant populations and is best done in the spring when the plants are smaller and the soil is loose. It's important to remove the root system and avoid leaving behind plant fragments that may resprout. And mechanical methods such as mowing and cuttings are effective for medium-sized invasive plant populations, where hand pulling would just be too hard to do. It's best to cut the plants to ground level before flowering occurs, and mowing will likely need to occur multiple times throughout the growing season. And to avoid resprouting, remove the clippings from the site and solarize them, which means to place them in a like a black sealed bag, like a big black garbage bag, tied up in a sunny area for for like a few days prior to disposal or composting, and this will just kill the plant and any seeds that are in it. And if there are remains with seeds, place the remains in those black bags before solarizing. And chemical methods are most effective on medium, large-sized invasive plant populations, where mechanical methods are unfeasible. And it's important to always follow all chemical label instructions to ensure effectiveness and avoid causing harm to the environment. And apply the herbicides at peak growth before seed production. And fall is often the best time to apply herbicides to sort of just ensure that the chemicals are drawn down to the plant's root system. And treated plants should be undisturbed for 2 weeks and no disposal is required. And if you encounter wild parsnip or giant hogweed on your property, it's very important to avoid direct contact because they produce a highly toxic clear sap that causes severe medical issues, skin issues, rashes. When the sap gets on your skin, it's exposed to sunlight. It triggers a very painful chemical reaction called phytophotodermatitis, and it just results in severe burns, blistering, permanent scarring, and potentially blindness if it touches your eyes. So you want to avoid using a weed whacker on these plants as it will cause the sap to spatter. So the wild parsnip, it grows to be about 2 to 5 feet tall, and it features these flat umbrella-like clusters of a distinctive yellow flower paired with yellowish green celery-like leaves that have sharply toothed margins, which you can see in the picture here. And then the giant hogweed is enormous, hence the name giant hogweed. It grows between 8 to 14 feet tall and with hollow green stems, and they're covered in these prominent purple splotches and very coarse white hairs. And then supporting massive white flower clusters that span up to 2.5 feet across, so they're pretty big. And the New York State DEC has a giant hogweed control guide and hotline that can be found online. So you can learn more about how to manage it safely if you do have it on your property and what to do if you find it. And so giant hogweed and wild parsnip are often confused with the non-invasive angelica and the Queen Anne's lace. So, but there's some things you can look for to distinguish. So the cow parsnip is much smaller with soft velvety white fuzz on its green stems. It doesn't have the purple splotches. Angelica, it features smooth, hairless purple stems and it has a round, softball shaped flower globe. They're really cool plants. Queen Anne's lace, I feel like many of us are pretty familiar with that. It has small knee-high, it's a small knee-high weed. It has these very delicate feathery foliage and a single dark purple dot in the center of its white flower cluster. And then the wild parsnip, it stands out immediately with its bright yellow flowers and the celery-like leaves. Okay, so now I just want you to just close your eyes and imagine you're taking a walk in a forest and you come across a particular looking leaf, or you notice that there is a large population of plants seemingly, taking over the landscape. You may just walk by this without thinking twice, or if you knew to do so, you could recognize an invasive forest pest or plant and you could report it. Having volunteers who are trained to recognize and report invasive species is another major goal of our program, and you are invited to join us. So to enhance early detection efforts, we've developed a land protectors learning experience that offers a unique opportunity to learn to identify, survey, report, and manage priority terrestrial invasive species through virtual and hands-on experiences. So the program kicked off the webinar on June 3rd this year, which is available on our website, followed by a forest pest survey and invasive plant management trainings that were held earlier this month. And we do have some upcoming sessions that include invasive species removal training on July 22nd, followed by restoration plantings in October, and then a hemlock woolly delgid learning series this winter. So you're welcome to join that. And there are 3 virtual toolboxes with resources themed to protect lands while on the trails, in the forest, or in your community. They feature helpful guides, best management practices, community science tools, and urban forest guides. You can check those out on our website. So we've talked a lot about ways to protect our lands. Now let's consider protecting waters. So the SLELO region, as we know, has some beautiful water bodies to explore and aquatic ecosystems that wildlife rely on. And aquatic invasive species are a major threat to our waterways. And there are simple actions that you can take to help to protect them. One of the easiest things that you can do to stop the spread of aquatic invasive species is to clean, drain, and dry your watercraft. And here's a message from the New York State DEC showcasing the proper steps that you can take. Maybe if I can find the play button. Oh. Sorry, for some reason it doesn't want to play. Well, I will just include that in your follow-up email. I'm not sure why it won't play, but it's pretty much just telling you to clean, drain, and dry your boat. Let it dry out. When you're cleaning it, hot water, high pressure hose, like the picture here. Also to drain the bilge water, and then to let the watercraft dry for at least 5 days before entering a new water body, and to visit watercraft inspection stewards located at boat launches throughout New York State. And there's also decontamination stations available where somebody will actually come and spray down your boat as well. So next, I'd like you to go on another little mental journey with me and just imagine that you're taking a nice kayak paddle in your favorite waterway, or maybe you're just enjoying some time along the shoreline and you notice there are some suspicious looking plants floating on the water or growing along the shoreline. And knowing if those plants are native or invasive could protect that water body. So one of the best ways to protect your waters is to learn how to recognize and report aquatic invasive species. So we've launched our Water Protectors program back in the summer of 2023 with a vision to engage community members to be stewards of their waterways and to help us learn more about the aquatic species in our region. So since then, we've trained about 32 volunteers who have adopted 23 water bodies in our region. And it's our hope that you'll join this movement and become one of our water protectors. And this is a picture of one of our water protector um, trainings. So the Water Protectors program, it's centered around the Aquatic Invasive Species Learning Experience, or the ISLE, which is hosted annually. And it's a 3-part learning series that includes a webinar and 2 in-person learning sessions, which are upcoming. So the workshop on July 10th will be a great opportunity for you to see plants up close and in person. And then there's a guided paddle on August 14th. And that's just a great way to spend time on the water and to see the plants in their natural environment. And during that session, we'll also demonstrate how to conduct a rake toss, and we'll have some underwater viewing scopes for you to use. And there is a recording of the webinar for the kickoff of this program available on our website as well. And another great way to help protect your waterways is to organize or to participate in a manual removal effort for water chestnut, which we call a water chestnut pull. So water chestnut, it's an invasive aquatic annual plant that is native to Eurasia and Africa. This is not the same plant as the water chestnut that can be found in supermarkets or in cuisine. It is easily identified by its leaves that form in rosettes that float on top of the water, and they have these inflated petioles and these very pointy nutlets. And each of their nutlets can produce between 10 to 15 new plants. In turn, each rosette can produce 10 to 15 seeds. So you can see how it can easily spread and quickly spread. The nuts are very easily dispersed in the water, and they can remain viable in the sediment for up to 12 years. But the good news is that water chestnut is relatively easy to remove manually while their populations are small. So it's really important, just keep your eye out for it. If you see, if you live near a water body or you frequently like to go on paddles and you see water chestnut, and it's a small population, just pull it out of the water. You don't have to, because it's an annual, we're really just trying to get to the seeds before they drop into the sediment. So if you just grab the floating part of the plant and then snip it off the stem, that's all that you have to remove. You don't have to, spaghetti roll the entire stem down into the sediment, because then you'd be disturbing that sediment and disturbing the aquatic ecosystem. So you don't have to do that. So July is water chestnut pull season, and there are multiple events being hosted by SLELO and our partners that we just would love for you to join us. And they're all listed here, and they will be included in your follow-up email, so you don't have to memorize these dates or locations. But they are really just a great way to spend some time out in the water and protect your local waterways. And our Water Protectors Toolbox has many helpful resources, including an interactive map that you can use to locate those boat launches that have the watercraft inspection stewards present and the boat decontamination stations, as well as species identification guides and aquatic invasive species management practices, permitting resources, and also some funding opportunities. Okay, so there are also some really great community science-driven mobile apps that you can use to aid with invasive species reporting and also identification. We shared tips and training materials for these tools in our Protectors toolboxes and the Protectors blogs, as well as through many of our training events. So you'll be exposed to them if you join some of those events. But just wanted to give you a quick overview of them. So the IMAP Invasives, it serves as New York's official invasive species database, and it is supported through a collaboration among the New York Natural Heritage Program, SUNY SF, and the DEC. And the data is submitted by conservation professionals and also the general public. So IMAP has a free mobile app that lets you report observations pretty quickly and easily, even without Wi-Fi connectivity, which is perfect for making reports while you're in the field. And there's also an online platform where you can report observations, view distribution data, and report and view treatment and survey data. So that's at the nyimapinvasives.org website. And the observations and data reported to IMAP through the app and also the desktop version, it can be viewed by anyone on a public-facing interactive map, which has multiple layers and filtering options to make it easy to find the data that you're looking for. And then IMAP can also be used to set up notification alerts for specific invasive species, which is really helpful for conservation professionals or just, project leaders, like say you're part of a lake association or something and you wanted to survey your water body and you want to report everything to a special project specifically for your lake association. You could make a special report, and then it just makes it easier for you to query the data from the interactive map filtering tools, because you can just toggle on your project and see all the data pop up on the map instead of having to filter in different ways. It might just take longer to do. Okay. Hopefully these videos play. None of my videos seem to want to play. I apologize for that. So iNaturalist, many of you have probably heard of it. It's a form that allows you to share photos of species that you encounter with a network of people who can help with identification and can often answer questions. It can also help you identify species using AI technology. And the video was just going to show you someone using the app. You basically just, walk up to any species, you take a picture of it, and then in the background, you can select what species did I see, and then multiple species will come up, and then you can look at the pictures and choose what species it was. You can also lean on the forum to learn what invasive species are as well. So that's how an iNaturalist works. You can, when you make your observations, they're public. Or you can also set them to private if you wanted to, like say there was a rare plant that you took a picture of and you don't really want to let people know, where that species is, for example. You can filter those tools too, so you're not having those types of problems. But it's a really great and powerful tool. SLELO Prism has our own special project on iNaturalist, so if you are a user or plan to become one, if you just search for SLELO Prism under the project section of the app or on the desktop version, you can join our project, and we'd love to see what observations you have. And then Seek, again, my apologies that my video won't work here, and now because it was a video, it's got a blurry picture. But many of you have probably heard of Seek. It uses artificial intelligence to identify organisms. The observations that you make are private unless you sync your account with iNaturalist. So there's an option to do that, but you have to be an iNaturalist user first, of course. So, and this one's really cool. It's not a forum and it's not public unless you sync it and then move those observations to iNaturalist, like I mentioned. But what I like about it is that it instantly will give you suggestions of what a species is, and it'll pop right up on the screen instead of having you choose from a list of possible species. Some tips when you're using these tools, are to maybe put your hand, or maybe if you had like a blank piece of paper or a notebook or something behind like the plant, or just to kind of like help your camera focus. That's really helpful when you're taking pictures, because with all of these apps, to confirm if it is or isn't a certain species, we have to have very clear photos of what it is that you think the species is, if that makes sense. So getting different angles of like the flower, of the stem, if it's an insect, the wings, things like that, just thinking about those things when you're taking your photos. Okay, so that pretty much concludes my presentation. And I just wanted to say, that you being here really matters. And we really hope that you'll join us by taking the Pledge to Protect or attend some of the events that I shared with you today. And I'd like to just open the floor with any questions. Should you have any, you're welcome to come off of mute if you're able to. Dan might have to help unmute everybody. Or let me see. If anybody wants to come off mute and can't, just you can use the chat if you have any questions or comments or stories, anything you want to share.
Just sent everybody a request to unmute. So if you have any questions, comments, it should make it easy.
It's Marianne Cataforis. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Yes.
you.
Does anybody know anything about I'm sorry, Dutchman's
Japanese.
pipe vine? Dutchman's pipe vine.
I'm not familiar with that one.
It grew on people's front porches on a trellis maybe a long time ago. It was sort of an old-fashioned plant with big heart-shaped leaves. And there is an American species which grew on the house next door, and now it's taking over our yard. It spreads by roots that are about 1.5 inches below the surface of the ground, and it will not quit.
Yeah, that I'm not familiar with that species, but I would assume that, taking the approaches that I shared of, if it's a vine, if you cut at chest height and then follow it down and then cut really low to the ground, that should give it a lot of problems. And then if you're able to in the spring, dig up the roots when the soil's loose.
The thing is, the roots are sort of a network now because it's been spreading
Yeah, you might
several
have
years.
to use some tools to like just sever those roots. But have you ever tried to just cut the vine and see what happens, or?
What we have to do is pull it out of the lawn. It can grow 6 inches sort of overnight, popping up here and there in the yard. It comes up in a lilac hedge, and we can deal with that. But the part that comes up under the ground in our yard and just spreads in all directions, we'd have to remove the top 2 inches of soil everywhere to get rid of it. But it's coming from next door, and it's a rental property, and nothing's going to happen next door.
Yeah, that's frustrating, especially when the source is coming from a neighbor's yard.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough spot.
It's the native one and not the cultivated one.
I think it's the native one. It's smaller leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Flowers are not quite so impressive.
Right, they're kind of small. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be probably the native.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
not native here, native farther south, but
Right.
it's perfectly happy here. Nothing eats it, nothing bothers it.
Well, I'll have to learn more about it. I did look it up on my phone here just to kind
I
of
don't
see.
think you'd find it any place but in villages or, where old houses are.
Okay.
That's my guess.
It's a little more difficult for you because it's not your plant, so it's kind of hard for you to manage it probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, I would just say try if you could communicate with the neighbor and see if they would maybe collaborate with you for removing, and then maybe choose like some of the native plants from the New York Flora Atlas. Maybe they would be open to that. Especially if you're saying the flowers aren't that impressive, maybe you could dazzle them with some prettier looking plants.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Yeah, Megan, just to clarify, will some of the information from the slideshow, including some of the native replacements for the invasives, is that going to be sent out in an email just so
Yeah,
people don't more easily
everything that you saw me speak about today. So I pulled the information directly from those protector blogs. So my intention is to send a link out for each of the specific blogs. So then more information can be obtained, and as well as the toolboxes. So everything will be put together nicely in a follow-up email that'll go out, later, a little bit later this week, because I need time to
Beautiful.
get the
Thank you.
recording and everything. Yeah,
Mhm.
and like I said, there's a lot of native plants out there. So the suggestions that I shared are just ones that our partners or that myself thought, like, oh, I like that plant, and all right, it's native. It's on the New York Flora Atlas, and it can be found in our region. But SLELO has realized that, sometimes it's really hard to find the native non-cultivar, the true native species in like our local nurseries. And we even struggle too because we do restoration work, and we always want to, have what we call eco-regional, climate adaptive plants. So we even ourselves struggle to source those. So I'm always on the prowl for like local nurseries. The Wild Ones has that really great shopping guide that I linked in the Garden Protectors Toolbox that has, they're always adding nurseries that just sell the natives. So it's a really great resource. Um, and also, I've started communicating with my favorite local nursery here where I live, Watertown, and just saying, hey, I really want this or I really want that. And I noticed that they've started to like have things that I've asked for, like, this year showing up and focusing more on the natives. So just be like an advocate for yourself. If you have a favorite nursery, just like say what you're looking for, because they're gonna want to sell what you want to buy. So that's the best advice I can give for that.
Um, on that, looking for native plants to put in your own garden, I did see a request for information about the plants that we are looking for in our own native edibles card game. So I'm just going to put a link. There's a Google Doc. I hope everybody should be able to access that. In case anybody is interested, there are a variety of different plants, and if we get new contributions or recommendations as to other plants that people would like to see on the list, shoot us a message, and maybe we'll make a couple different versions of the card game of the trading cards. Not trading, they're not trading cards. It's literally going to be like a simple deck of cards, sort of like ace, spades, clubs, except with, seeds, the plant, the flowers, the fruits, as that sort of style. So if you are interested, if you find any of these plants, on your walks, as you're doing a pledge to protect and exploring to protect your local environment, send these pictures, take them, and if you're willing to share them, just upload them to this Google Drive folder. Make sure I'll put the folder in here, and this information will also be sent out in one of our local living venture emails. So if you're subscribed to us, you'll get more information, updates on this topic. But let's see.